Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I'm just going to be talking about Nova Teen Book Festival. So on Saturday, March 7th was the, I believe, second annual Nova Teen Book Festival, so it's a relatively new festival, though honestly I never would have guessed because it was so well run. The Nova Teen Book Festival was a free event. It was held in Arlington, Virginia at Washington Lee High School, so for me that's about a 2-ish, if traffic is good, hour drive up the I-95. We did actually hit traffic on the way up, so I was sitting there for 20 minutes, and it took me that long to go like a mile or two, and I was just like, are you kidding? The event was put on by several bookstores and libraries there in the area, and there was a really amazing lineup of authors that were going to be there. Honestly, I didn't even know that it was going on, except for the fact that Jennifer Niven, the author of All the Bright Places, put up a little thing, I believe on her Twitter or Tumblr, saying that she was going to be there, and I was like, Nova? I was like, I mean, I don't live in Nova, but I can drive to Nova. So I checked it out. It was an amazing lineup of authors, so I just said, I'm gonna go. I'm not doing anything that Saturday, I'm gonna go. The only real thing I had to do for the book festival was make sure I got a ticket, which was free, so that they can make sure, you know, how many books they want to have there for sale, and, you know, how many people to expect, as well as know that I could only bring 3 books of my own to get signed at the end of the festival. It was so much fun, so I guess I'll just give you a brief rundown of some of the panels that I went to and kind of how this was all set up. So there were main author panels that were going on in the auditorium area of this high school, and in that you'd have a lineup of like 5 or 6 authors, and they would all be on some sort of theme, and they'd talk to the general crowd with questions from a moderator and then turn it out to the audience for questions. At the same time, there were these things called breakout sessions going on, and the breakout sessions were really cool because it was literally just like 1, maybe 3-ish authors, and it was just kind of you with them in a classroom, and it was really intimate, and you just sort of asked them questions on whatever their topic was. So I went to 1 breakout session and 3 main panels, and I also listened to the keynote speaker at the end of the day, but I'll get to that in a moment. So I did not go to the first main author panel. Instead, I went to a breakout session, and it was called Breaking the Cycle, and it was with Jennifer Niven, author of All the Bright Places, and Jasmine Warga, author of My Heart and Other Black Holes. Both of the books by these authors are dealing with very, very tough topics in young adults. I mean, mental health and you know, potential suicidal thoughts and all sorts of other things, and so it was kind of nice to listen to them talk, and not always about the book. I mean, they would talk about the influence of their hometown on the settings of the novels. They would talk about the genesis of ideas for these novels, you know, what it was like to write them, how that process went, and for me that was really, really interesting. I didn't realize that it was pretty much just going to be us asking them questions, because I really didn't have any. I'm much more of a listener. I prefer to have people tell stories and just sort of like, I just sit there to listen, and kind of everything comes in and I filter it in later. I didn't have any questions up front, so I just listened the whole way through, and that's alright. It was really a great session. It was 45 minutes long, and it was awesome. I turned right around and went to the big main author panel that was, you know, right after that, and it was called The Weight of Living, and this panel featured Sean Hutchinson for his book The 5 Stages of Andrew Brawley, Jennifer Niven for All the Bright Places, Jason Reynolds for The Boy in the Black Suit, Kat Spears for Sway, and Jasmine Warga for My Heart and Other Black Holes. This panel was put together because all of those books that I just mentioned are books that tackle very heavy topics, especially grief and depression and suicide, and that inner struggle we all have to either give in to our sadness or try to overcome it. And this panel was amazing. These authors were really great. There were some wonderful things discussed, such as coping, or, you know, dealing with all this grief, you know, why it really needs to be talked about, and how if you're feeling bad in any way, it's, as much as there is this strange stigma in society about being very forward with such feelings, it's really toxic to not talk about these things, and anything. And then also talking about things like the question of closure. Does it really exist? And actually, I have to say that Jason Reynolds, whose book, The Boy in the Black Suit, I now really, really, really want to read, gave a really good answer to this, and I wish I'd had enough like battery and memory on my phone to really videotape all this. But what he said about closure was the ideas of, does it even exist? He says, you know, like when you're an athlete and you get hurt, say like you tear an ACL or something, and the doctor mends it, he patches it up, but the doctor will say, you're never really fully healed. You can work as best as you can with it, but there are going to be times where it's still going to hurt, it's going to impede you, there's going to be things you might not be able to do with it, and you really have to learn to overcome it and to deal with it. That's a great answer. I don't know, I thought that was a phenomenal answer, and it was a really phenomenal panel overall. I was very invested in everything the authors were saying and how they were saying it. Wandered into the next big panel that was after that. I actually walked in like 15 minutes late because the previous panels had started 15 minutes after the hour, and I'd forgotten that the second half of panels were starting on the hour. Oops. Anyway, I walked in. This one was called Love the Way You Lie, and this featured Martina Boone for Compulsion, Maggie Hall for her new book, The Conspiracy of Us, Rachel Hawkins for Rebel Belle, Melissa Marr for Made for You, and Marie Rudkowski for The Winner's Crime. This was a fun panel. I mean, it's all about like espionage, hidden identities, family secrets, but what I really liked is when they talked about the writing process and how you have to really decide like how much do you reveal along the way, and it's like how knowing that your character can really never keep secrets from the audience, especially if you're in their headspace. They can't just know something and you not tell the audience that, but it's like if they don't know and it's getting revealed to them and it's like background information, how much of it you reveal or how much of the background do you develop, whether or not you tell it to the audience. It was really interesting. This was stuff for me that I found fascinating as someone who just kind of dabbles in writing, and it's something I like to do on the side but want to improve with. You know, in terms of a craft, I'm going, that's stuff I need to hear and kind of understand, and hearing people who do it really well is awesome. And finally, for the author panels, I attended the last big main one, which was called Out of the Woods. This was all about fantasy and science fiction sagas and dangerous situations and darkness in both the characters and in the setting, and this was an awesome panel. It featured Seth Fishman for The Dark Water, Lydia Kang for the book's Control and its sequel Catalyst, Jessica Corey for her latest release in the like Corpus companion series. The latest book is called Kalahari. Sarah Rash for Snow Like Ashes, Morgan Rhodes for the Fallen Kingdom series, and Kristen Simmons for her latest release, The Glass Arrow. This was a very fun panel. It was great listening to these authors talk about, you know, kind of world building, standalones versus series, and how you plot them, how you know whether or not you're gonna have one or the other, and really interesting things. It was also just wicked fun. Seth Fishman is hilarious. I've never, you know, met him before, heard anything about him before, but he was just cracking me up in my seat the whole way through. And also, apparently Miss Simmons does origami. She was doing origami there at the table, which I'm going, you know, then after that, we were all just sort of fascinated, wondering what she was crafting over there. It was really a fascinating panel, again, from someone who really likes to write, kind of for fun, and most of the writing that I always seem to end up doing is fantasy related, because I try to write what I like to read, and what I love to read is fantasy. So getting to listen to these authors talk on that very thing was awesome. The keynote speech was done by Matt De La Pena, who, I'll be honest, I'd only read one thing by Matt De La Pena, and that was his short story in My True Love Gave to Me, which is the 12 holiday short stories that came out just at the end of last year, and I really liked his short story that was in it. I loved his little tale, and I did not realize how many awards he'd gotten, like how much of a big deal he was. I feel so very out of the loop in that regard. But his speech was wonderful. It was witty, it was charismatic, he was hilarious there on stage in all the best ways. You can tell when someone is a very good storyteller because he can keep you captivated for 45 minutes and you don't even realize it's been that long. It was a really great speech. I loved every second of it, and wonderful keynote speaker. It was a really good way to close out all the sessions. Then you were dismissed and you had to go get in line for the author signings. What they did was they kind of had the authors in like a horseshoe, alphabetical by last name, which was really cool. You stood in line to get in there, and then you would wait in line for individual authors, and it was just really cool. So I guess this is the point where I'm just gonna start showing you the stuff, the little bit of swag I got, and the few books that I got signed, and I'll just tell you what it was like getting them signed, I suppose. So first up, not really related to any author themselves, but just from the festival, I somehow managed to get 3 of these Novoteen Book Festival bookmarks. It's cool. They have a list of all the authors that were attending and their work on the back, and it's just sort of general about the event. I don't know how I ended up with 3. I swear I only picked up 1. And then picked up this button that says, John Green and I go way back. It's the 10th anniversary of Looking for Alaska. It's got the hashtag Looking for Alaska 10 on the bottom. I still haven't actually read Looking for Alaska, so that's a little bit awkward. I know, it's on the TBR. I swear, it's on the TBR. I have a copy in the little TBR shelf. I will be reading it, I promise, but it's a cool button. I like buttons. We all know I like buttons. I put them on things. I did bring 3 books of my own to get signed, but I did purchase one while I was there at the event. I meant to purchase 2, but one of the ones that went after, I guess it sold out before I got the chance to get to it. Of course. But the book I purchased was My Heart and Other Black Holes by Jasmine Warga. After hearing her talk with Jennifer Niven and then also on her big main panel, I said, yeah, 110% buying this book. I was really excited for this book anyway. I remember when people first started getting ARCs and they were sort of talking about the premise of it, I was going, I really want to read that book. I hope it's really good. I'd heard nothing but really good things about it. I have actually read it. Yesterday I sat down and read it in one sitting. And I basically tried not to cry my eyes out the whole time I read it. It is, admittedly, it's a very dark book, guys, for a lot of it. There's some very deep emotions that are running through it, and I think anybody who has ever suffered from depression can immediately identify with the thoughts of this character. Not necessarily her situation or some of the exact things that she says, but the way she describes how it feels and a lot of the insecurities and anxieties that come from depression and such, it's just nailed. And I was reading this, my dad was in like the chair right nearby, and I'm like, I can't start crying because then he's gonna ask me what's wrong, and I'm like, you are not gonna cry right now. You are not gonna cry right now. And Jasmine Warga is so sweet. She signed my book for me, and I told her like how much I'd been anticipating this book and just how much I loved her panel, and she's so well spoken and so eloquent. Okay, just for fun, I need to read you guys the first paragraph of this book because it's the reason I knew I was gonna love this book. Music, especially classical music, especially Mozart's Requiem Mass in D minor, has kinetic energy. If you listen hard enough, you can hear the violin's bow trembling above the strings, ready to ignite the notes. They set them in motion, and once the notes are in the air, they collide against one another. They spark. They burst. I just love that opening paragraph. The book was phenomenal. It's guys. So the next 3 books that I'm going to hold up are ones that I already owned and I brought myself to get signed. So first I brought Snow Like Ashes by Sarah Rosh. I bought this book not even the day it came out, the night before its official release date. So the night before it was due to be published, it was sitting on the cart ready for us to go out, and I was just like, wait, this is not a strict on sale? They're like, yeah. I said, I'm buying it. I've been looking forward to this book since like the cover first debuted, which by the way, yes, it is a stunning cover. This is a high fantasy novel where the idea is that all the kingdoms are broken up by season. Well, not all of the kingdoms, most of the kingdoms. Here, let me show you part of the map here. So these 4 kingdoms down here in the bottom are set by season, and basically the season is the same in this kingdom the whole way through. It's a really, really fun high fantasy book. It had a phenomenal finale. Like the denouement of this novel, the action finale was amazing, and it left enough stuff open for a sequel that I'm really, really fascinated for the sequel. So yes, I went and I saw Sarah Rosh and got it signed. Also, she has amazing purple streaks in her hair, and we all know I went blue once, and I'm thinking like purple was clearly maybe the way to go. And she signed my book, said let it snow, which I don't know how much I agree with because everybody in the East Coast is like really sick of snow by this point. Ice Like Fire will be coming out in October, which is super exciting. And she also gave me this little card, which I will show you, which you can't even really see all that well, but it's for the Kingdom of Winter. It tells you what their magical conduit is, because each kingdom has like this magical conduit. It says what the air is, which I'm not gonna say because I'm really afraid that actually might be a spoiler. What it's known for, in this case mining, and the capital, which is January. So because Morgan Rhodes was there, I brought my copy of Falling Kingdoms because I could only bring 3 books. I do own Rebel Spring in paperback, but I didn't bring it. And because I really wanted to bring a different book, which I'm sure most of you have probably already guessed by now, but we're not at it yet, so hold your horses. Yes, I brought Falling Kingdoms, my paperback of Falling Kingdoms, and Morgan Rhodes is really cool. For those of you who have not heard of Falling Kingdoms, have not read it yet, or what have you, 1, you need to, it's awesome. She pitches it as Game of Thrones meets Gossip Girl, which I've never watched or read Gossip Girl, so I can't judge. I basically just call it a YA Game of Thrones because it has multiple perspectives. It's an epic high fantasy with a lot of political intrigue and people who are constantly flitting that line between good and evil, if you believe that line really exists and if it's not just tons of shades of gray, who you will love and hate and constantly change your opinion of. It is an amazing ride, and so I brought at least the first one to get signed. I also felt I should have worn my Canada shirt. She lives in Ontario, Canada, and I grew up in the suburbs of Buffalo, New York, and my grandparents live in Toronto, so I spent a lot of time in Toronto, which is obviously the capital of Ontario. I was like, oh, I could have been repping Canada. Totally forgot to rep Canada. Oh well. She signed my book to my then happy reading, and the hashtag at the bottom was the hashtag for the festival. And it was funny, she started writing it and I had to pause. I'm going, oh gosh, you trying to remember the hashtag? She's like, yes. I'm going, I know, it's a simple hashtag, but for some reason, because my brain immediately thinks Nova Teen Book Festival, having to then think of, oh gosh, which initials did they use? Whew, it's actually kind of hard to remember at times. She also was giving out bookmarks for the upcoming companion novel series to the Fallen Kingdoms, which is a book of spirits and thieves. Also, can I say I love her little wax seal logo. I think it's really, really cool. It totally fits. Book of Spirits and Thieves is coming out June 2015 from Razorbill, which is, I believe, an imprint of Penguin. Also, she had this poster that says, "War brought them together, love will tear them apart." It has the covers for the first 3 novels in the Fallen Kingdom series down here. I have only read the first 2. I have not read Gathering Darkness yet. I know. I need to read it. Okay, I'm on the wait list at my library for it. So I need it. So here's the thing about this poster, right? I was trying to figure out who the 2 people on here are. I guess this is Cleo. She's got the blonde hair and she's got the ring. I'm like, okay, that's Cleo. Here's the thing. This guy right here, this mysterious hooded figure, kind of looks like this character here on the 3rd book cover. Now, from what I've been told, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this character on the cover of the 3rd book is a character I haven't met yet called Felix. Because I haven't read the 3rd book, so I don't know who Felix is. And it looks awfully like this person here. So I'm assuming this is Felix. But then I've also been told this is Magnus. Does anybody know? Someone clear this up for me. I don't know. Whatever the case, it's an awesome poster. I really need to figure out where I'm going to put it on my wall because I have far too many posters on my wall. And finally, she was giving out these really phenomenal Fallen Kingdoms pins, which this is just beautiful. I love it. Again, it's going with the Dawn Green pin probably on my purse because I have a thing about putting pins on my purse. It's like putting stickers on my laptop. If you ever see me with my laptop is covered in stickers. It's a little obscene. And finally, the last book, which I brought to get signed, highlight of the whole event, guys. As much as I loved meeting all these other authors, this author and her book were the impetus for me even going to the festival and the whole reason I went. And yeah, let's just kill the suspense because I'm sure you all know exactly which book this is. I brought my much loved, much read, much post-it flabbed arc of All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven to get signed. And guys, I was shaking. I was so excited and so nervous that I was shaking. But guys, Jennifer Niven is so lovely. She's one of the loveliest people I've met. She's so sweet and so wonderful when she speaks. I mean, everything she said, it was very interesting to hear, and you can tell how much this book means to her and how personal a lot of it is, because this book makes me cry so hard. It means so much to me. But I did get to meet Jennifer Niven, and first off, she did love the fact that mine was just covered in Post-its. I will link her Instagram down below because there is a picture of me holding my much Post-it flabbed arc that she took. And I did mention that I had actually made a fan video over on my Vidding account, I'll link it down below, about this book. I don't often do fan videos for books because they're really hard. Oftentimes I'm just not inspired enough to do it, or I just figure I don't have the footage for it. And I did one for All the Bright Places, which she saw and really liked, and so I got the chance to be like, that was me. I just wanted to say again how much your book meant to me, and yeah. She signed my book for me, and this book, it's going back in its treasured spot, and it will be cared for and loved for all time. She just gave me an All the Bright Places bookmark, which is really wonderful and totally fits in the book, which I love, so it's gonna stay in the book, as well as an All the Bright Places Sharpie. I try to show it to the camera, but it's just too bright. So yes, I got to meet her, and oh guys, it was so awesome, and I do feel kind of silly. The one thing I should have done was asked to get a picture with her, which I didn't. Next time, it's gonna have to be next time. But the other cool thing that she was doing was she had her own copy of All the Bright Places, and she was having us sign in it. That's when I knew I was shaking, because my hand was shaking trying to write. I was just like, yeesh, it's like getting an adrenaline rush. I couldn't even properly explain it to you guys. That was, for me personally, the highlight of the festival, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. So I had a lot of fun at the Nova Teen Book Festival. Definitely gonna try and go back again next year. If you guys didn't get to go this year, definitely think about going next year. It's fun, it's smaller, and so it's very intimate, and there's some amazing authors, and they talk about all sorts of great topics. And I mean, they're all amazing people, so it was so much fun to interact with them. But that's gonna be it for me today, you guys. So until next time, cheers.